Hi, welcome to Fast Intelligent Care. I'm Chanel, and we have in our episode today our ending of our four-part series, Callan Jones, our new clinical educator and occupational therapist at Enable Life Care. So our previous episodes, we went through a little bit of a history of how she got into OT and the AT space, looking at how she came up with very creative low-cost solutions in a low-resourced context, and looking at comparing different settings, so community and hospital practice. And then today's episode, our focus is going to be looking at some impact stories, lessons that she's learned, and reflecting on that journey. So my first question is, do you have any stories or a story where AT made a meaningful difference or impact on a client's life?
I think I have heaps, and I think that's why I love the AT space. I sometimes call AT my instant gratification OT, because sometimes we can do such small things that make such a difference to people, and in terms of comfort and just feeling really confident in themselves. Even if that's selecting a walking frame that's in a funky color for someone who's younger, so that they just feel a little bit less othered and feel much more seen. But I think one of the biggest stories of impact was, I previously worked at a social enterprise, and my boss in that space always kind of said AT has this ability to really bring visibility to people. It's not just a tool for postural support, but it can actually bring respect. It can promote inclusion. It can really allow people to be able to get back a sense of dignity sometimes. And I, somewhat understood it, but I really got to see it in practice when I was doing a workshop in a seating clinic in Namibia, which is just a little bit north of South Africa. And we were working out of a special needs school. And we got to see some kids getting their first wheelchair and their first piece of AT. And one of the kiddies that we were working with had arthrogryposis, so he just had a positioning where his legs were crossed and they were in a fixed position because of contractures, and so he was always sitting on the ground. And that meant that a lot of people would just talk around him or walk around him. And when he got his first piece of equipment, it was amazing to just see people start to engage with him so much more. So he was suddenly at eye level with his peers, so that people would come over and chat to him at his desk. Adults would look at him a lot more because he was able to, adjust his posture and lift his head and be able to make eye contact with them. He was able to just be so much more visible in the space. And it was beyond what we could do in terms of the meaning was so much more beyond what we could do in terms of postural support for him and mobility. But it just had this impact where suddenly he just by being that little bit higher felt so much more seen. Yeah. And it was just wonderful to see in that community context.
It's amazing, and it's a way to really empower someone to be part of those social settings with their family and peers. I actually have a very similar story of a young boy with cerebral palsy that he was on those, it's almost like a crash mat, those play mats.
Yes.
That he would be lying on the living room floor, and his sisters loved watching cartoons with him, but he'd always be lying on this crash mat, and he'd kind of just be able to hear the cartoons and hear them joking, and he'd basically be looking up at the ceiling. And we had to bring in a power wheelchair, it was a power wheelchair. We had to bring in a power wheelchair for him so that he could actually get onto the school bus. But the most impactful thing about that power wheelchair was that he actually got to sit upright and be able to watch cartoons with them instead of just listening to them. And just the smile on his face, being able to actually now see it as well, was just amazing. And he would actually be able to interact with them a lot more. He actually got to use a pod book to be able to communicate with them. So it's just such an amazing thing, other than just accessibility. But the more meaningful thing for him was that social engagement with his family members.
Absolutely.
What is something you would tell your younger self?
I think it's something I still struggle with, but I think if I could tell my younger self anything when it came to AT, was just to not stress as much, to try limit the anxiety around AT. I think it's such a challenging space because with so much innovation, you might have a bit of an idea of what your AT processes are, but there is constantly new equipment coming out. There's constantly new solutions, new guidelines that are recommending best practice as we continue to research in the space. And I think as a new practitioner, it can be really intimidating because you sometimes want to know everything and feel like you should know everything for everyone. But you can't possibly. And I think going back to understanding what you're hoping for your AT to do. So again, understanding your principles and being able to understand how to communicate that effectively is some of the best thing you can do in this space, because then that allows you to go to different suppliers and say, hey, I have no idea about what equipment you might have, but I need something that can do X, Y, and Z. It needs to be this width, it needs to be this length, it needs to be able to support someone with these postural needs or these pressure care needs. And then relying on those relationships with your suppliers and your distributors to be able to be the product experts, because it's just, there's no chance that you're going to be able to learn everything. And taking that pressure away so that you actually enjoy the AT process as you go along and learn to rely on others as you work in the space, because then you get to make some amazing connections and also just get to still have some fun while you're doing your AT.
I think that's really, really true. I think thanks to mentors that I had is why I went into the AT space, because it can be very intimidating, and I think we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to know everything and to understand everything immediately. And I think having that support and like I said, telling your younger self that to not be so anxious about it and actually enjoy it as well. And if you could go back in time, would you change anything?
I think it's a difficult thing. I think there's so many moments that were rather embarrassing, and I wish I had known a little bit more than I did. But I ultimately think I wouldn't go back to change anything in terms of the way that I've gone on this AT journey, because I wouldn't have been the way I am today. It's a super cheesy answer, but I think all those moments and that feeling of sometimes embarrassment has driven that curiosity and wanting to expand further and know more and be the best clinician that I can be for my client. So I think those moments are just as important sometimes as when you get the opportunity to attend a CPD and learn stuff before, so that you don't make those mistakes. I think it's all part of the journey that you've got to go on as an AT provider. And I think as long as you are feeling confident and don't lose that sense of curiosity and don't lose that sense of trying to be open-minded about things, as long as you don't lose that, I think you've got a great future in the AT space.
Yeah, and it's true. Like every time you make a mistake or you do something that's embarrassing, you'll learn. So it's all part of the learning process, and I think it's something that can be, I think, as adults, it's difficult for us to feel like we're out of our comfort zone and that we're still having to learn things and we don't know everything. But I think it's true. Like every mistake we make or everything that we missed, we learn more, and we get to teach others.
Absolutely.
To learn from our mistakes as well. What would you say is could be a personal or professional quality or skill that you think someone would really, if they had that skill, they could thrive in the AT space? What is something you can think of?
I think there's a few. I think one of them is, prior to getting into the AT space, I don't think I've ever picked up a drill, looked at anything. Now that I've been in AT, I know how to drill, pop rivet, use some angle grinders and things. But I think a professional skill, like a practical skill to work on, is just to try and be a little bit more confident with actually being on the tools and looking at equipment, trying to pull it apart to understand it a little bit. And it doesn't need to be really complex things, but just being able to understand what bits might need to be tightened, how to potentially adjust or make small adjustments to a chair, so that when you see something in the community, you might feel that little bit more confident to just make that change instead of having to always send someone back for a review with a distributor or supplier. Sometimes there's just small little things that you can do. And I think the more confident you feel being on the tools, the more confident you feel with just actually being able to look at a piece of equipment and not feel like it's going to break if you open the covers and look at things. I think that's a really great practical skill to have in this space. In terms of personal skills, I think the being open-minded and being flexible and adaptable is one of the biggest things that you can do, one of the biggest things that can really help you in this space. So we can be creatures of habit, and I think it's natural to want to stay in your comfort zone. And so if you found a piece of equipment that really works the first time, you want to keep prescribing it and prescribing it until it might not work. And I think being able to, again, lean back on your clinical education, lean on those principles, but being able to be like, I might need to look for something outside of my comfort zone, and that might be a little bit scary. I think it's going to set you up for success in the long run, because realistically, products come onto the market and then they get discontinued, suppliers change, and sometimes there's big lead times in terms of delivery on some stuff. Sometimes you can get something really quickly. So I think being open to exploring other options in that space is really going to set you up for success and help reduce some of the frustrations that often come along with AT.
Yeah, that's true, because there's always, new evidence and stuff coming out, and like you said, new technological innovations and equipment that are trying to step up from what they've previously done. So I think a big part of not just working in the AT space, but any OTs is kind of being that like lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Always being open to learning new things, looking at new guidelines that have come out, and what's the next best evidence.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. Thank you for all your valuable experiences and knowledge. And that's a wrap for our part 4. So just a bit of a recap of our 4-part series. We went through Callan's journey into OT and the AT space. We looked at her working in the South African low resource context, so looking at low cost solutions, comparing working in community versus a hospital practice. And then our last episode, we went through a bit of a reflection, lessons that we've learned, qualities that are important to have. And we would love to hear from you in the comments about your own experiences, lessons that you've learned, mistakes that you might have made, or any impactful AT stories. We'd love to hear about those. Thank you for your time, and if you are looking for more educational or clinical resources, make sure to sign up for our Enable Life Care app, where we always have new content coming out. We have webinars, and there is selected tools, so many things for you to look at. Stay tuned for the next episode, and we'll see you soon.